media and there's some YouTube, TikTok people that just love to get views. But this whole house price crash, what's happened or what's happening with this house price crash?
Well, not much, to be honest.
As agents, that's probably one of the most common questions, isn't it? Should I move now or should I wait? And my reply always is the right time to buy. What would you say is going to happen over the next 5 years with the market then?
I think overall, if we're looking over a 5-year period, I think prices...
A big thing that I think people are forgetting is that for the last 3 years, very few new homes have been built. Right, welcome. So, my name's Perry Power. His name is...
Chris Ellis.
And we had this mad idea, right? We're both highly experienced estate agents, been doing it many, many years, both got very shared missions of improving the industry and solving people's home moving problems. And we do that by, we both own our own estate agencies, but also we wanted to share more to help people who maybe we haven't met and spoken to yet. So we had this great idea. Let's just hit record, talk about the challenges in the market, the challenges that clients are facing, help people. And so we thought, let's call it The Move. So this is the maiden voyage, is that what it's called? Of The Move podcast.
Looking forward to it.
Let's do it. So Chris, let's start off, right? Let's kick off with, I guess, media and there's some YouTube, TikTok people that just love to get views. But this whole house price crash, what's happened or what's happening with this house price crash?
Well, not much, to be honest. So I think there's a lot of noise. I think this is the problem at the moment. And again, especially this year, we're in 2024, and the problem being at the moment is there's so much noise around interest rates and mortgage rates and price crashes. And it's, as I said, I just see it as all noise. The market we're seeing is pretty good. It's price sensitive. But it's really interesting, actually, because I just thought about it as we're talking there. We just put an article recently about prices increasing. So land registry data prices have gone up. We had a comment from somebody there stating that all she's seen in Sittingbourne recently is prices being reduced, which then obviously sort of poses another problem. As you and I know, agents have gone back to old tactics of pricing high and reducing the price. So it's given a little bit of a false impression there that, the market's coming down, but ultimately the price was overinflated to begin with. So I don't know, are you finding similar to where you are at the moment, Perry, or what?
We had exactly the same conversation. I had a call from one of my colleagues yesterday. She said, I had an inquiry in his house. The woman said, will they take a 10% reduction on price because she's had to reduce by 10%? And I said to my colleague, I was like, politely reply to say, with respect, we price accurately and correctly. So no, because what's probably happened there is she's taken a 10% reduction because the agents that she met over-egged her expectations and price by 10%. So of course she's 10% more than what probably the market. And we'll talk about how good agents arrive at pricing in a minute. But you can't, it just weren't worth what she had on the market at in the first place. So she hasn't reduced her house price by 10%. She's had to reduce her asking price by 10% to arrive at the true value of the property.
I think that there's been an announcement recently, isn't there, about land registry data and what's actually been achieved. So seeing asking price, and then you're seeing actually what's actually been achieved once land registry data has been announced. And I think that was sitting around 88-90%.
Yeah, that's about right. And the thing is, so this whole house price crash, right? There hasn't been one. Yes, there hasn't been one. Whether there will be one, I very much doubt it, and I'll talk about more of it in a minute, but no one's got a crystal ball. But up until now, there has not been a house price crash. There has maybe been house price correction, but that's far from a crash. And the trouble with these media outlets is they take headline figures. So there's places in the UK, not where I am or we are, particularly in the southeast. Yes, there's been a correction, 5-7% at most, I think, probably. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I've been saying about 7%. I suppose then when you go back a year or two, so before 2023, I would say we were probably overachieving for properties.
By that same kind of amount?
Yeah. So I think if you're talking about a price correction, if we didn't have a market that was just, low stock.
Falsified, propped up. Yeah.
So I think, as I said, looking at it there, as I said, from our point of view, I can remember like going out and telling people, I think your house is worth 300, put it on at 325, and we were selling it at 345. But then again, that was the market, it was the demand, and that pushed prices up. But personally, I feel if the market didn't, if we didn't have 2022, then I think we'd probably be at a level kill, even kill.
Yeah,
Obviously, you had
come out
the.
in the wash. Yeah, we're still up on prices from 2019
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like it went up 20%. Obviously, 19 up from kind of 2021 parts of 22, and it's come down maybe 7%. And now the important thing to remember is though, house price media outlets, scaremongers on YouTube or whatever like to talk about nationwide figures. So,
Yeah.
but the problem with that is I've done a video on this on our channel. There's multiple markets. There's your national market, there's your regional market, there's your local market, and then there's your micro market within the local market. And
Mhm.
what you've got to bear in mind is you've got to balance it. So yeah, in the southeast, we were, I think, hardest hit. But then
Yep.
so there's some prices in the northeast, I think, that have gone up by 10%.
Yeah.
So
I've
or
even
7%.
15. Yeah. So
Yeah.
10, 15%. I've heard in certain locations.
So you've got to balance it. So it's definitely not been a crash. I think that's really important to say. And I don't think there ever will be a crash because we've always had and always will have a housing crisis in the UK. And by housing crisis, I mean there's just more people wanting housing than there are houses for them to have.
Yeah.
Really simple math.
It's really interesting because, again, one of the other things that I found recently is like what I've noticed locally. There's a lot of stock on the market. It's over the 6-year average. And I spoke to somebody last week, and they were saying she's been advised by a mortgage advisor it's not a good time to buy at the moment. Now, obviously, she had a higher property; she was looking to downsize, and it's sort of got me thinking: is why is it a bad time to buy? You've got more choice. So what are you going to wait then for the market then to flip round? The market suddenly go really busy again, and then next thing you know, you've got less properties, more competition, and you're going to be paying over the odds again. So why would you not buy now?
And we get, as agents, that's probably one of the most common questions, isn't it? Should I move now or should I wait? And
Mhm.
my reply always is the right time to buy is when the right house comes up for you and you can afford it.
Yeah.
There's literally no other discussion to have. If it's a house that you're not like, oh, I love that house, then don't buy it. Simple. If the house comes up but you really can't afford the mortgage payments because of the interest rates, then don't buy. But if you can
Yeah.
afford it and it's the right place, buy now and wait, as they say, rather than wait to buy.
Mhm.
What would you say is going to happen over the next 5 years with the market then? So I think the next 12, the rest of 2024, either three things could happen. Interest rates will come down, house prices will go up. Interest rates will go up, house prices could come down a little more. I think that's unlikely. Well, the third thing, most likely, interest rates will stagnate and the market is as it is now. It's going to stay ticking along. Some houses are flying on the market. Some properties are not flying so well. But what would you say in the 5-year view is going to happen?
I think overall, if we're looking over a 5-year period, I think prices, if you look back in history, I think ultimately we're going to see prices to continue to go up. I think what's going to happen this year, I think, as I said, we've had today, obviously inflation's dropped down. They're now talking, obviously, bringing interest rates down. Are they going to bring that down imminently, or are they going to wait a little bit longer? I think they're going to bring them down at some point. I think that's going to bring a little bit more confidence to the market. We've then got an election around the corner, haven't we? Notoriously, that starts to quieten down a little bit. So I think this year, I just think we're going to be an up and down. And I think this is what we've seen so far. It's been heavily influenced with the noise within the market. That's what I'm personally seeing. So, but over a 5-year period, I don't know, price is going to, I think we're going to start seeing increase again. I just think there needs to be a little bit more confidence. We're coming out of a unprecedented, I hate using that word because it's been overused over the last few years, but it is, I suppose. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, I don't think. I just read people that are highly educated and been to university, so I'm highly educated more than me. But the whole kind of Savills and Knight Frank predictions, I like reading those because they're very rounded, balanced. Um, and by that I mean like they've got prime low. They're kind of brands that have got lots of different departments, so they can't talk down the
Mhm.
investment market for the homeowner mover market, and they can't talk down the prime market because they've got all those divisions. And both are agreeing with what I'm reading from them is that in the next 5 years, prices will be up 20% from what they are now.
Mhm. Yeah.
And a big thing that I think people are forgetting is that for the last 3 years, very few new homes have been built. Now, even during the boom years for the last 10 years, we haven't built enough houses. So the target's always been 300,000 new homes a year in
Mhm.
this through this government. And I think the most we've ever got to is 175,000 or something, if I'm right. Maybe might have
Mhm.
got to 200,000. So already this whole housing crisis wasn't being solved by fresh housing supply being built, not even coming
Mhm.
to the market. Layer onto that, 3-4 years of added backlog. The minute those finance taps get turned back on again, I think we could be in another bubble, another boom, a ridiculous boom.
So that's just made me think again. If we're going to be looking at over a 5 year period that the market is then going to be increasing potentially by 20%, it poses the question again: why would you not buy now? So generally, what's the average sort of time now? Is it 5? I think it's come down, isn't it, from 7 to about 5 years? I think it's there or thereabouts. 5 to 7 years, people tend to move.
Yeah, depends what article, but it's in that kind of 5 to 10 for sure.
Yeah. So if we're looking at that, and there is, again, it goes back to that question: if there's a property on the market now, why would you not buy now? If you're looking at it from a longer term, but I think a lot of people look at it from shorter term, and they think, oh, well, if they buy now, property prices drop by 5%, and then they're going to be in negative equity. However, if you're not selling, it's not a problem.
I totally agree, but also people forget about the compounding effect of house price growth.
Hmm.
So it's all right saying, well, from a 500 grand house now in 5 years' time be 20% more, so that'd be 600,000. Well, it won't. It'd be more than that because it'll go from 500. Let's say on that case, so 20% divided by 5 years, that's 4% a year, right? Right, on
Hmm.
average. The predictions say that we could see more of a dip this year potentially, but then a slow increase, and it's not a straight up, put it that way. But the average, which is the important thing to think about, so that 500 grand house next year will be 520. That's 4%.
Hmm.
Plus 4% to that is 540. 540. Now that's 2 years. So 540 plus 4% is 561. Plus 4%, 684. Plus 4%, £607,426. So it compounds.
Yeah.
It don't just be like goes from 500 to there. So I think it's people that are just saying I'm going to wait until house prices crash are going to be waiting a long time.
Hmm.
That's the general message from both of us. Now, I've had comments on my YouTube videos, oh, you're an estate agent, of course you'll say that. I need to make clear it has absolutely no impact on us if house prices drop.
No.
It's actually got a better impact on us if they do, because what helps estate agents is movement,
Hmm.
people moving. So if house prices go through the roof and only 10 people can afford to buy a house, that's a problem for us. If house
Yeah.
prices drop loads and then 100 people can now afford to buy a house, that's good news for us because there's more volume and more movement.
Interesting spin on it, then, isn't it?
Well, this whole thing that, of course,
Mhm.
you'll say that, like, whether a house price at 500 grand goes up or down 5% has very little bearing on our fee.
Mhm.
So it's this whole, because people are so like to hate on estate agents, it does my nutting. Like, think about it. People that make these comments, like, think what you're saying. Um, we want people to
But
move. If anything, there's part of me that wants house prices to come down so that more people can have the benefit of home ownership. There's so
Mhm.
many people stuck in highly inflated rents, but
Mhm.
we're not the government. We're not the Bank of England. We're the
Mhm.
interpreters and facilitators of the market.
No, well, no. Again, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because again, I've gone through social media before, and again, it's you estate agents putting prices up. Well, at the end of the day, we're not the ones that determine what the actual value of the property is. Ultimately, it's the buyer. So again, the house is always worth what a buyer's willing to pay. And ultimately, if it is too high, so they will downvalue it. So it's not us that's actually inflating the value. Okay, don't get me wrong. There's a few agents out there at the moment that are overinflating prices to win business, which I think is one of the topics we'll talk about shortly.
Yeah, we'll touch on that. But the important thing difference there is they're inflating asking prices
Yeah.
to win business. But what the eventual value of the eventual price that house sells for has no bearing. It's somebody's
Mhm.
been happy, prepared to pay it ultimately.
Mhm.
So Yeah, let's go on to the next point because I don't want to start getting onto a rant. Talk to me about solicitors, conveyancers right now. And I'm going to get
Yes.
you onto a rant here, and I.
Well, it's the same with obviously our industry. Let's not knock certain industries. However, there is a bit of an issue. It's the same with estate agents, isn't it? There's good, there's bad. It's the same with any industry, any trade, anything. There's good and bad. What we're finding at the moment with conveyancers, again, there's good and bad. I'm sort of on the fence with this because, again, I think that there's always been this brick wall, and I do feel that it's something that we do need to address between estate agents and solicitors. Now, we work with a few local conveyancers. I've always felt that local's better. I prefer to use somebody that's within the same town as we are. And we work very well together. And again, there's deals there that we've been getting in between anywhere between 6 and 8 weeks, which, as you well know, in this market at the moment, that's a phenomenal time frame. So it can be done. But then obviously on the flip side of that, we're dealing with a lot of conveyancers at the moment that are working more on volume, cheaper fees. And what I'm finding at the moment is trying to get responses from conveyancers is just, yeah, it's non-existent. Now, could that be, again, it's their workload? Again, I'm here to defend as well as obviously moan. Could it be their workload? Are they taking on far too much? Or is it a case of there's some estate agents that are inexperienced with dealing with sales progression? And it's just, again, a tick box exercise. So I think there's an argument to both. But the process I'm finding at the moment, I've had several deals. I've got several deals as we speak at the moment that probably should have exchanged 2 weeks ago. And for one reason or another, they're not going through. And again, it's what's not helping is communication. So I've got one conveyancer at the moment. I'm trying to get an update as to why. I've got a chain of 6. Everyone's trying to find out what the solicitor's doing at the bottom. Don't know what's happening. So at the moment, we can't find out as to the reason as to why. And when you've got people there that are obviously highly emotional at the moment, they want to move, they're worried about fall throughs, getting to this stage. They've gone 12 weeks, 16 weeks in some cases, waiting for a move, and then you can't get an answer from the conveyancer at the bottom because, well, what's the reasons? I don't know. They're not answering.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's multifaceted, isn't it? The problem's been caused by multiple things, and the solution is multifaceted as well. Like, I think you're definitely right on the whole capacity play. Just like estate agencies, a lot of people
mhm,
feel like the best way to be successful in the solicitor firms is to charge the lowest amount and get the most amount of clients. What
yep.
what I
Mhm,
think generally happens, and we're the same. We recommend local, good, reasonably priced, good value firms, not the cheapest, not the most expensive. But then, just like estate agents as well, if you've got a team of 5 agents working with you, you can probably only handle 75 properties for sale at a time.
mhm,
So
yeah.
that 15 for sale, 15 going through, I've kind of worked out for a good agent is probably their capacity level. Now, that's 15 per agent. Conveyancers, I know this for a fact, a lot of their cases, they have to handle 75 to 100 cases at once.
Mhm,
Because if you're only charging 800 quid, you need a lot of bloody volume to make some money. So
mhm,
I say to people, look, it's not you're paying us 8,000 quid, but Jesus,
yeah.
like you've invested in a good agent and you appreciate the value of a good agent.
Mhm,
Please do not now go and scrimp on your solicitor because all the hard work we've put in is going to be completely effed if the sale falls through to delays, lack of communication. Just go and pay a reasonably priced conveyancer to get it through.
The thing, what I've found as well is that when we're talking about the sort of figures that we're looking at, we're only talking like 100, 200 quid.
Yeah,
And in the grand scheme of things, when you're spending, well, certainly where the average of where we are at the moment is around the 360,000 price. When you're talking that sort of money, why would you save 100 and 200 quid? But again, I suppose it goes back to the fact of clients aren't educated, I suppose, at the moment. When you've got various parties that are suggesting certain conveyancers for huge kickbacks on referrals, why, which is not always disclosed, why would they go to that conveyancer? Or why would they go to a conveyancer that we're suggesting?
it is. You're absolutely right about it. It's the education piece.
Hmm.
Just like choosing an estate agent, people
Yeah.
have been conditioned, or not even conditioned, just not educated to the fact that fine, choose a cheap estate agent, but just make sure
Mhm.
you check their average percentage of asking price, their average percentage of initial offer to sad agreed, their
Mhm.
average completion success rate, and then make a decision. Don't
Yeah.
just like solicitors, ask them, great, John, I've got no chain, I've found a house I want to buy, the seller wants it to be agreed to exchange in 8 weeks, subject to everyone else in the chain being able to accommodate that. Have you got the capacity to accommodate those timescales? And
Mhm.
little questions like that. I had a client ask a conveyance that recently. She said, in all honesty, John, I'm handling 88 cases at the minute, so I wouldn't be able to probably accommodate those timescales for you. But people
Mhm.
aren't asking the right question. It all comes down to ask the right questions, get the right answers.
Yeah.
But people haven't got the resources, or there's no one like us. Hence this whole waffle. We wanted to jump and talk about these things because if there's one person that watches it and thinks, "Oh my god, that's a great idea," then we've done really well.
Mhm.
Because there's no one really doing this, and helping them. Someone in Scotland could be watching this who we've never spoken to, ever met, and I think that's quite powerful. The reach that you can have now with the right advice.
Mhm.
So choose wisely. Um, I always say to people, same with choosing solicitors and estate agents, forget fee until the very last thing, the last discussion point. Choose your agent based on who you're most impressed with, who responded quickly, who's got the best marketing plan. Because the chances are that person that you're most impressed with ain't going to be the same amount of money as the person that was absolutely shocking and took 4 days to get back to you. So,
Mhm.
and there's a price attached to that. There's a cost
Yeah.
attached to it, and then make a decision. But too many people go straight in with how much will you charge to conveyance my property sale, um, and then they're not asking things like what's your fall through rates, what's your average days to exchange, and all this kind of thing. Because we can't get the file to exchange, we can help progress it through, and we can help shimmy people along potentially, but that's all we do is chase.
Yeah, and I think this is sometimes the misconception of what we do, isn't it? Is the expectations of we're the ones that are delaying it. I've had that time and time again over the years. Is you're. I had one person said, "Oh, you're dragging it out," and why would I drag it out? If I could get it done in a day, surely that's more beneficial to me. Um,
Again,
Sold a house, get money in one day. Great, that'd be brilliant, wouldn't it?
we're lack of education. Why would an estate agent who don't get paid until you've got the keys be dragging it out?
Yeah.
Like there's um and this is why we want to be sharing this kind of information, because it's just, ask the right questions. If you don't know the questions to ask, reach out to Chris or I, and we will help.
So maybe a lasting point on it. Again, it's like the way that I see it is that we can get deals through in 6 to 8 weeks, but it's dealing with conveyancers there that we have a good working relationship. But it's not only just a case of we're chasing them for updates. You mentioned there, I said there's some conveyancers there dealing with 88 to 100 properties. That is a phenomenal amount of properties to be actually dealing with. And I think I've sat in a conveyancer's office before, and I actually, until you've actually been there, they actually do an awful lot, and that's the problem. I think when you've got agents there that are just calling constantly for updates, and it's just, as I said, just a tick box there, um, yeah, just a tick box exercise. That's stopping them from doing the work, and I think that again it goes back to it's not we can't put all the blame here. But I've found before, like again, the conveyancers I work with, it's a case of look, you've got a lot on your plate. What can I do to chase? Who do you need me to chase to get it through? And
Yeah,
I think if
exactly.
you've got that working relationship, then it just, but both of us then are on the same page. At the end of the day, we want to get the deal done. We want to get them moved. Simple.
It's like the conveyancer is there to do the legal aspects of it. So you don't
Yeah.
want to be rushing the conveyancer either, because that's the
No.
most important part. I've had sellers come to me where I'm like, your solicitor should have dealt with that, but they've just indemnified it. We can't just
Mhm.
indemnify it now because of this, or lenders have changed, or blah, blah, blah. But it's things like following up. If you're managing 88, 100 cases, you can send an email with a reply to an inquiry. But what they tend to do, and I find this a lot, is they just, I've not heard back yet from them. And this was a week later. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like, have you kind of followed them up? And they're like, no, I'm just going to, and it's pretty much polite way of
We
saying
don't do that.
the ball's in their court now. I'll wait for their reply. So that's where
Mhm.
we, as agents, rightly so, maybe have to pick up the pieces, and then we get on the other side. Oh, have you received that inquiry? Yeah, great. Is it satisfactory? Yeah. do us a favour, let them know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that'll speed it up by 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
So it's I think the crux of the problem is the method, is the legal transaction method in this country is actually broken, but that's exaggerated, I think, by there being just an over capacity of conveyancers because
Mm-hmm.
everyone wants. Look, I totally understand that people want the best, lowest price for everything they can, but you have to actually balance it with, all right, I'm paying 600 quid, but there's the chance, because we know for a fact the longer a transaction takes, the higher chance of the sale falling through.
Mm-hmm.
And that might only be because someone's changing the situation during the whole time. So you've got to balance it with, okay, their average days to exchange is 84 and theirs 120. I could pay
Yeah.
600 quid more and get it done quicker. That's a calculated decision. So yeah, and that ties in well. Touch quickly on conveyancing when leasehold and management companies are involved, because that can add a whole another 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Oh, easy 4 to 6 weeks at the moment. And I think this is another problem. And again, I think this is again miseducation. It all goes back to that education piece, isn't it? I think this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do this. But yeah, I've got one at the moment, and I've even looked at the email this morning. It's this should have been exchanged 4 weeks ago, and the response I'm getting from the management company at the moment, by all means, she's really good. She's coming back to us, which is great. But the response I've got is it's been passed on to the regional director, and we'll revert back to you. Well, what does that mean?
With
So,
no
and this is
SLA, with no
yeah,
managed expectations, it's likely he'll be back. He will be back in touch no later than a week from now or 2 weeks from
yeah,
now, and that's the
mhm,
real pain in the backside bit, and it's almost
yeah.
like they're waiting as long as they want.
And I've even found as well, and obviously one of the things that I advise our clients is to make sure you're getting the management pack from the outset once the deal's agreed, because again that's going to be speeding up the process a lot quicker. But then I'm finding that there's like 4 to 6 weeks in, and the conveyancer dealing with it hasn't requested the pack as yet. So again, that's just another delay. And as I said, I've noticed certainly over the last couple of years, management companies certainly haven't sped up the process.
Well, there's this whole leasehold reform bill, isn't there? Because this is a big problem. So the whole leasehold reform bill should hopefully fix a bit of this. But there's a lot of issues because these lease management companies are charging 5, 6, 7, £800 for a management pack, which is
Yeah.
extortionate. It's borderline extortion. And then you've
Hmm.
got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to wait for it to come in. And then you've got off the back of it, the buyer's solicitor might want to raise some inquiries, and one inquiry could take 2 weeks to, like, this ties in a lot actually with digging deep as to how the solicitor operates. So you and I
Hmm.
both know, 20 years in the industry, some solicitors will ask inquiries as they find them. Some
Hmm.
of them will spend 6 weeks reviewing a file or gathering all the information in. Then they'll raise 17 inquiries the day before exchange of contracts, and then we're waiting another 6 weeks for replies. I'm a massive fan, and I always make sure that solicitors I work with raise inquiries as they go, as they find them.
Hmm.
Because that's another thing with the leasehold pack. If you're waiting and then you like, right, I've got 17 inquiries for you, that is just a train wreck waiting to happen.
We've also then obviously got the issue then with conveyancers, solicitors acting in the best interest of the lender as well. So I found recently there's another situation where they've done all of their inquiries, they've sent it off to the mortgage lender. The mortgage lender's come back and said they're not happy with the terms of a rent charge or something there that has to then be referred back to the management company. And again, then you've got another couple of weeks, few weeks before that's then answered. And then, as I said, in most cases now, in most management companies, so there's a deed of variation, so a change of the lease.
Just
And
about to say that,
that's
yeah.
another back and forth, which,
What I've
yeah.
started doing is when our selling clients, when they're very, um, quite proud that the majority of them take our advice, and we take our advice on solicitor selection. I'll have the seller's solicitor apply for the management pack really quickly, but then I'll
Mhm.
have the seller's solicitor review the management pack as if they were acting on the buyer's behalf, and then to look at it and think, right, this is going to need a variation, there needs clarification on this, and just to get really ahead of it.
Mhm.
And that helps a bit, but then you can't, you you can't stop we can't stop the buyer's solicitor overlooking something and then being, oh my God, I'm going to need that. I need to go with this final inquiry. So yeah, it's stressful, but choose the right agent, choose the right solicitor, conveyancer, and get proactive with it. Let me ask you something we touched on earlier. So we've touched on this whole house price crash or lack of conveyancers, solicitors, management companies. Talk to me about agents overvaluing.
Oh, this is a real frustration at the moment for where I certainly am. So I've been to somebody recently, and I like to obviously talk about stories and case studies because I think it's just a little bit more relevant. But I had a lady I've dealt with in the past, and I've gone out and I suggested in the region of 270, 280. And then she's come back to me and said, look, she wants to use me, which is great. She's dealt with me in the past. But the other agent said 325. And as I've been saying to a lot of people, especially locally, I don't know where you are personally, Perry, but where we are, from one road to another, there could be a huge difference in price. Certainly one location to another. And for me, the price in there at the 325 was in line with a more desirable location. But I'm seeing this quite a lot. And again, that's just one case. So generally speaking at the moment, and this is sort of, as I said, given a misconception as the market coming down, we touched base on it earlier, there's a lot of price adjustments. If you look at the last 2 weeks, there's been more price adjustments locally than there has been new listings. This led me to looking into what agents are adjusting them. And again, look, we're not perfect. We get it wrong at times. We may work with a seller. So again, it may be a case of a 270, I feel the property's worth, and they want to put it on at 280. And I think, okay, well, there's a good chance of working with it. So we might have to adjust a couple. But I'm looking locally, and we're seeing adjustments. One agent is reducing 1 in 5 properties, 1 in 4 properties, at an average of around 8.1%. So what I've noticed is the differences in where I'm coming generally at the moment is about a 10% difference. Is that inexperience? Is it a lack of knowledge of the area? Is it a case of that lister has to hit their listing target? And if they don't get X amount of properties, then there's a question there with the director or the area manager or the layers that be with some of these companies. But for me, and you and I know all too well, by putting a property on the market and it's sitting there and then having to reduce the price, it not only affects the price that's ultimately achieved, but it takes a lot longer to sell a property. So for me, pricing it right from the outset is key. But if you don't and get it wrong, it could have a detrimental impact on the actual overall price. I don't know what if you want to add to that and what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, there's 2 types of overvaluing. Intentional, unintentional. Now, I've definitely, over my career and recently, unintentionally overvalued a property and had to reduce it. But there's also a hell of a lot of agents out there right now that are intentionally overvaluing a house just to win the business, knowing they're going to need to reduce it in 3, 4, 5 weeks' time. I guess before I go on to kind of the pitfalls of it, one way to avoid it is just to make sure, and I've been screaming from the bloody rooftops about this for the last 20 years, just make sure that your agent's not tying you into a 12, 16, 21 week contract tie-in.
And it's also then adding to that as well is that you've got the 20-week agreements, and I know agents there that are doing 4, 6 week notice periods.
Yeah.
And which is crazy.
What you'll find is there will be a correlation between valuation received and contract tie-in length. Definitely. So I know that the biggest culprits in our area that I know their kind of business strategy, and it's a strategy, it works, they've been going plenty of time, is that value high, tie in, reduce later, but also fix the fee as well at the inflated original overvalued asking price that was intentional. So yeah,
because I'm in the same boat as you on this one. Is it evaluation what we do?
Nah. we're not allowed to give a valuation. We're not legally allowed to value a house because we're not qualified to do so. The only
Hmm.
people that are legally allowed to do so are RICS chartered surveyors.
Yeah. So what would you say is it what we do as agents then?
We position it in the market to achieve the best price.
Yeah. And I think this is, again, another misconception about what we do as agents, because, again, it's like, oh, you valued it at X. Did we value it, or did we suggest where it should be?
Yeah. And this is like, so I think the whole contract length's really telling because I know, my other bit of advice is, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. If you're
Hmm.
like, oh my God, I didn't think my house was worth 350. I thought it was worth 300. Everyone else said
Hmm.
300. Chances are it's probably worth 300.
Yeah.
And what you're going to do is you're going to kill the launch by going on at 350 or 340. What you're better off doing is sticking it on with an agent you trust and has got a good plan and strategy that offers in excess of or guide price 300. And guess what?
Hmm.
If it's worth 350, it'll get there as long as
Yeah.
your agent puts a thorough, good marketing campaign in place. And
Hmm.
because what happens is, you see, when you put that house that's worth 300 on the market at 350, and then 12, 16, 21 weeks later, you keep knocking the price down to 300, it ain't going to sell at 300 because it's been
Yeah.
kicking around the market for so long. And it matters, oh, that's been the market ages. Something must be wrong with that. And that is a genuine, I think it myself when I see something on the market. And then what you've got to do is knock it down to 275, 280 to get it sold. So not only
Yeah.
have you cost yourself 6 months, but also 20, 25 grand by I wouldn't say being greedy, because who is Mr. and Mrs. Jones to disagree with the guy that's been selling houses for 30 years in the town? So,
Hmm.
but what I would say is any price you're given for your house, you have to see and agree with the research that has arrived at that figure. If
Hmm.
anyone just said, just because, I know I've been doing it 30 years, that ain't good enough.
Yeah.
Ain't good enough. You've got to look at price per square foot comparables, most recent sales, the market change recently, and then layer on a bit of, oh my God, John, all the market data that I've researched, let me take you through it. Sits at around 300, but your place is absolutely incredible. Nothing on the market like it, nothing recently sold like it. So I think you probably get to 310, 315. But to
Hmm.
get there, we're going to market offers in excess of 300 because without people coming through the door, they're not going to appreciate your quality and your finish and your size and your view and your outlook. So don't overcook it and kill the interest, undercook it and sell higher. I've got a
Hmm.
situation at the minute where I've moved the family for years. They haven't and would never speak to another estate agent, which is both good and bad because I think there's extra pressure on me in that case. And I think
Hmm.
I've undervalued it. And I haven't launched it to market yet, but when you come away and think, oh, I think that could do better than what I've assessed it at. But
Hmm.
then the other person on my shoulders, I want to get all clients the best price, period. But I also know that if I tip too far, I'm going to affect their price and time scale, and I could probably cost them money. So it's more pressure when it's just on your shoulders. So I've
Yeah.
gone back to them and said, we were going to go guide 700. We're going to guide at 750 because the more I think about it and do research and chew on it for the last 3 days, um, I do think we are going to undersell it potentially if we don't do the right marketing price.
Hmm.
So it's pricing, and here's the important thing. Here's the most important thing: estate agents don't actually know
Hmm.
because they ain't buying it. So the
Yeah.
only person that can give you a true market value is the person who's going to end up parting with the money for it. And a great strategy to do that, which we do quite regularly, is your kind of two-step market launch. If I'm unsure, I will use a discreet, low-key kind of campaign to get a handful of viewings through the door to test the kind of feedback from the market. Two things
Hmm.
happen out of that. One, someone loves it and they want to pay whatever they need to get it before it goes to market. Great way of getting a kind of premium price. If nothing else, you get 5 buyers' feedback as to lovely place. And based on what I've seen, because buyers have access to the whole market, not just the houses they're invited in to have a look at, I think it's better than that one down the road at 750. it's just not quite right for me because the garden's a bit too small.
Mhm.
So that's really important as well.
Pose another question for me, because again, like, doesn't everything just go on Rightmove?
Generally,
Yeah.
that's what people think all an estate agent does.
Mhm.
And it's probably one of mine and your biggest gripes. So you rant about that one.
The key thing that obviously we do is obviously we put buyers to properties, and I think a lot of this has been lost over the years. And again, I was in the same boat. Everything went on Rightmove because Rightmove told me that, yeah, you need to get everything on. You need to do feature this, you need to do that, and that was the source really of what selling a property was. And it was over time that I just looked at, and I look, being honest and transparent, going back to COVID, honest to God, when we were releasing properties, we were so inundated with phone calls and emails on properties, we just couldn't cope. So we adopted at the time there of going off market and working with the hottest buyers. So you would have had like 20 people for one property, but then 13 of them weren't even on the market and proceedable. And then 7 there that were proceedable. So we were going to our 7, what we class there as hottest buyers. And again, people that were qualified, people that wanted to buy now and they could proceed. And we'd get 7 offers and we would get the price that the seller wanted, if not more. So we carried on and adopted that way of marketing, and we've done a lot of social media recently, but it's not always the way of, I would say, selling a home, sticking it on Rightmove and waiting for a buyer. And I think a lot of agents got caught out last year when the market did change. It was slightly more difficult. But we kept to the off-market strategy, and it's been working really well. But yeah, not everything goes on Rightmove.
And I think, like, we both know there's loads more to it. You know, you got your 2-step launch, like we talked about. We call it the 2-step launch. We low key, off market, whatever it might be. That's a great way. There's only 2 ways to achieve a premium price for a house, and by premium price, I tend to label that as, you know, the kind of figure that not everyone would pay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a price. There's every house has a majority market value, and it has a
Yep.
minority market value. And maybe we'll do a whole new topic on pricing, but even if this is what I say to people, right? Even if they did just go on Rightmove, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just appease everyone's opinion for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
There's about 29 different ways that the house could be on Rightmove. So that's firstly. All right, let's assume, yeah, we just stick it on Rightmove. All right, but how are you writing your description? What are you saying in the description? How are you photographing it? What pictures are you using for your lead images? How many pictures are you putting up? Have you got a floor plan? Have you not got a floor plan? Is it just standard on Rightmove, or is it a Rightmove premium featured, premium listing? All that. There's so much more to it than just sticking it on Rightmove to get the best outcome.
Mm-hmm.
The other
Yep.
thing that I really try and battle with is Rightmove doesn't respond to inquiries on your house. The agent does. And that could be within 10 minutes. It could be, and I urge people before choosing an estate agent to inquire about houses they're advertising and see what happens, because I know it could be 10 days. And I also know
Or none. I can't remember the statistic. It was a horrendous statistic that I think
well,
the
some
Property
agent
Academy
just
did.
never replied. So,
Yeah.
it could be 10 minutes, 10 days, or never. So that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
Rightmove don't deal with the inquiries on your house. It just creates inquiries on your house. Then the next thing you've got is Rightmove don't book the viewings on your house either. So there's a whole, as we'll talk about in the 11-step plan, there's a whole viewing strategy. Are you booking it by appointment? Are you booking it open house? Are you booking it block viewings? What's your viewing strategy? So now people are like, okay, I kind of see what you mean. But worse than that, Rightmove don't even show your house either. So
Mm-hmm.
a person needs to do that. And there's ways to show your house well, and there's ways to completely cock up a viewing. And then worse than that, if all that's gone perfectly fine, Rightmove don't negotiate for you either. So then you've got this situation where, yes, it might just go on Rightmove, and some agents, that is their strategy, and they're proud of it as well. We just stick it on Rightmove. But then it comes back to, great, thanks for that. How are you on Rightmove? What's your response times? What's your average viewing to sale ratio? It goes so much deeper. So no, we don't just put it on Rightmove. Next question. So we're talking about management companies overvaluing. So let's give the watchers some real tangible advice. How can you avoid your house being overvalued?
Well, I suppose the end of the day, it comes down to how has that agent demonstrated the price
Yeah,
at the end of the day. Because again, you could look at it the aspect of, oh, well, the property down the road's on at 300, mine's better than that, and mine should be 325. But again, it all goes back to, is that 300, is that what's actually been achieved for the property? So again, you and I know we're not going to know that information for a little while. So how can you avoid it being overvalued? I always believe that at the end of the day, if a property, I've always believed in pricing right from the very outset, pricing it attractive and then negotiate up. It will find its value.
I'm with you. So I always say it's the process that gets the best price, not the promise. So you're better off undervaluing your house than overvaluing it. And if you really want to avoid it, and I suggest this to, I've had clients come to me and say, Perry, I've had 4 valuations, and I just don't know what to do. They've come in at 7, 8, 850, 725. What the hell? And I'll just say to them, look, you're going to get, the lower you market it, the higher the price you're going to achieve. There's a caveat there. Caveat number 1 is your agent has to have done a full, thorough, at least 4-week marketing campaign. You can't just stick it on at 725, do a one-off viewing, get the asking price. Woohoo, I've sold my house for 725, because there might have been more out there in the market. But I say to people, just pay 300 quid. If you really want to know, just pay 300 quid and get a Rick's chartered surveyor to pop round as if they were valuing it from a mortgage purpose perspective. Red book valuation. They're the only ones legally can value your house. Doesn't mean it's not worth more than that, because what they value at doesn't mean that Joan down the road has been waiting for a bungalow in that road to come up for the last 15 years, won't pay 100 grand more for it. But it will give you more direction than 4 estate agents all trying to compete for your business because they're all low on stock. The short answer is you can't avoid your house being overvalued. You can look at it take your rose tinted glasses off. What you mentioned about, that one's at 300, mine's got a bigger garden, better kitchen, I'm 325. Well, if that one at 300 sat on the market for the last 6 months, it's probably not worth 300. It's probably worth, who knows, 250, 275, 280. In which case you should be going on at 300. And the other really important bit of advice, I think, for people is, if you go on at 325, you could justify someone paying 300 for the other house. You want your house to be the one. You want everybody else's house on the market that you're competing with to justify someone paying that bit more for yours, not the other way around.
There's 2 things there that I picked up on. Again, if you look at the experts that are in the market, ultimately, they're going to be the buyers that are looking at the time. They're going to be viewing every property. We're not going to be viewing every property that's on the market. So they're going to be looking at that one down the road that needs work. They're going to be looking at the one here that's really nice. And ultimately, would they then pay a premium? I've found time and time again, people have paid a premium if they could actually see the value in the property. But the question I get posed quite a lot is, if we put it on at 300, somebody's going to offer me 290.
Not if it's worth 310 compared to everything else that's available. Well, no, you are right. They will offer you 290, maybe even 280. Doesn't mean they're not going to pay 310 eventually, though, after your agent, me, has negotiated with them. Everyone, I never blame anybody for chancing their arm. What the seller needs is not a wet blanket when it comes to an estate agent acting on their behalf, negotiating for them. And the biggest and first test of that is hit them on their fee and see what they say. If they drop their pants quicker than they can say yes, don't be employing them, because if they're dropping their pants for their own kids' food on the table, trust me, they're going to have no problem with dropping their pants when it's your money, the seller's money. I had a client yesterday. He was really testing me, and he messaged me to say, I've had all these, we were recommended. And I was like, I've had 4 offers from agents to charge you 1% to sell my house, and you're coming 1.5%. Will you match it? And I'm like, I'm really sorry, John, we can't match it, but I wish you all the best. Phone's always on. If it don't work out, give us a call and we'll get you moved. And he replied the next day. He was like, why can't you match it? Because everyone else does that fee. I'm like, because I've never charged that fee to any current clients, future clients, existing clients. And if I do, that's a really unfair on the clients that I've helped on this development where I live, funny enough. And he was like, I really respect you protecting your fee.
Mm-hmm.
When can you get it on the market? So, and I was happy. I was totally happy with him trying the 1% agent. Two things would have happened. It would have worked for him. I wish him well. It wouldn't have worked for him. It would have come back to us and paid us our fee. Either one of those situations, I was very happy with. The skill that you're employing when choosing or selecting an estate agent, you don't realise it, but you're actually employing their negotiation ability. Their marketing can be crap, their advertising, their whatever can be crap, and it can all be pulled back when it comes to that buyer making the offer and how they're going to extract 3-4% more from that buyer than what the buyer wants to offer.
It all goes back to, for that 0.5% or percent or whatever you are charging more, if you can then put £10,000 more in their pocket over saving £2,500 on a fee, which one would you choose?
We had a 500 grand house, right? Our fee was 0.5% more, which is £2,500.
Mm-hmm.
I could show him factually that the agents that he was speaking to, that were offering him 1%, achieve on average 99 or 98% of asking price. So on a 500, let's take the middle range. So on a 500 grand house, if someone's achieving 98.5%, you'll get 492.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's 7.5 grand less than what we would achieve because our average is 100.7%. So, and I was confident in that. I was like, please don't take this. He said, I'm afraid we're going to have to go with the other agent. And I replied politely saying, John, please don't be afraid. Like, I really hope it works out for you. If it don't, my phone's always on. And 52% of houses we sell failed to sell with the previous estate agency. And we'll get you moved. But he wanted us to be his agent. But rightly so, he also wanted to try and squeeze us down on our fee. I don't begrudge that, just like I don't begrudge any buyer offering low on a house. Life's expensive. Everything's gone up. You've got to be able to ask the question. But people forget that they're just asking the question and the answer can be no.
But also as well is, again, you can work with that, can't you, ultimately? So... Yeah. I've always seen it from the basis of, if you've got a property that's just gone live, if you've already got offers on the table, then it's just going to set a little bit of FOMO amongst buyers.
I had another client, funny enough, that he was like, what are your fees? And I quoted him a fee, and he was like, because I've got offers on my property, but they're not high enough. I was like, what are the offers? And I was like, you should be taking one of them. Mm-hmm. Like, I could sit here and tell you that I'm the best thing since sliced bread, and I'm going to really outperform what that agent's done. The probability is I won't be able to do that. So just take one of the good offers that are on the table and move. Because if you end up playing a game with those offers and you lose them, and then I'm sitting here in 6 months' time saying, actually, John, you're at this price now. People only come to other agents if they don't trust in their agent's advice and opinion. Mm-hmm. Generally, it's you chose the wrong estate. If you're asking me what I think and not your own estate agent, you've chose the wrong estate agent. But let's not waste your time. And that same guy said, where do you think my price is for my house? And I said, knowing the area like I do, you've already reduced it 50 grand. You're probably going to reduce it another 25. So he went off and he's going to reduce it with his current estate agent because he didn't want to pay our fee. But I'll be the one, hopefully, that he's recommending that Perry really helped me get my house sold, as opposed to my agent sold it, but all the advice came from Perry at Power Bespoke. Most people don't share advice like that. They're like, I can't discuss that until you're out of contract with your current estate agent.
Yeah, I think that's the problem in our industry, isn't it?
Yeah. So then no one ever helps. No. What's going to happen now, hopefully, when he moves again in 5, 6, 7 years' time, one, he'll call me, ideally. Even if not, he'll remember that whole experience of, they said too high. Perry's more realistic based on the reasons why. So I won't overprice my house this time. I'll be a bit more objective about my own house. Mm-hmm. It's things like you should price your house to compete. If you've got a double garage and everything else has got a single garage, don't ask 25 grand more, but do expect 25 grand more. So if that house with a single garage on at 500, you should be going to offers in excess of 500 with the aim of achieving 520 because you've got a double garage and everything else at 500's got a single garage. Doesn't mean you change the marketing price though. There's two prices when you sell your house. You've got a marketing price and a target price. The two can be very different. and should be very
Yeah.
different. The traditional way of doing it is I want to get 300, so I'll go on at an asking price of 325, and my target price is 300. The way it should be done in this day and age is my target price is 300, but my marketing price is going to be offers in excess of 275 or 280.
That was
Caveat.
20 years ago marketing, wasn't it, really?
What's
So
that?
you'd always come in price high to win, not necessarily to win the business, but it was always to then knock down within that 10% margin. So as you say, if you wanted 300, you'd end up putting it at 325 to knock down. But again, the market's changed now.
How and why has it changed that whole pricing strategy then, do you think?
Well, again, if I just go back to Rightmove, like, what is it? 7 out of 10 people won't view a house if they feel it's overpriced. That was a statistic that was brought out by them a little while ago. So
I didn't know that one. That one's awesome.
yeah, it was a little while ago. It was a few years ago, but it's always stuck in my mind there that, as I said, that's quite a big number, isn't it, of people not viewing. But
Well,
there's
you
so
feel
much
that
data.
because I've withdrawn houses from market, then I've had 3 phone calls, but I've had no phone calls from those people while it was on the market. And the call has been, what happened with that place? I had my eye on it. I see it's come off the market. And I say, so why didn't you call me while it was on the market? And I said, because I thought it was so much money, overpriced. Really interesting.
So I get a lot at the moment where a lot of sellers then are coming back and going, well, why doesn't somebody come in and make an offer on my property then?
And what's your reply to that? That's a good one.
Well, again, it's not. This is the thing. It's not. I know we've talked on the other side of things with people making offers, but not everybody is in that same boat where they would want to make an offer. And ultimately, from their side of things, they wouldn't want to go and view a property there that they feel is too high, and then they get their hopes up. So they are waiting on that adjustment. Like, I had a property a little while ago. We had it at 325. We had a couple of viewings on it. It was too high in the market. We suggested it went down to 300. At the time, from memory, they needed 315. So I said to them, look, let's change up the strategy. Let's do offers over 3. They said, no, let's reduce it down to 315. We went back and forth. We ended up put it at offers over 3. I had somebody on our system at the time that had actually looked at the property, but they didn't want to go and view it because at the time it was overpriced. As soon as we took it down to 300, instantly, within 5 minutes, she called and wanted to book a viewing. She then went in, loved it, offered 305, which was above a budget of 300, but she went back to mum and dad's. Anyway, that was still a little bit too low. Ended up chatting with our mortgage advisor. He managed to get her to 310. So that 5,000 difference, we ended up then negotiating on the onward for them. So overall, the figures and what they were trying to achieve, it actually worked out. But it's interesting because that person at 300 wouldn't view it when it was at 325.
Yeah, that's so common. And I think it comes down to a couple of things. One is they just can't afford it. Why would they view something they can't afford?
They fall in love with it.
They fall in love with it. And
Yeah.
2 is they just might not be ready to view it. Right? A situation, again, another really good example of this. I sold a house recently for 20 grand over asking price. It was on the market previously with another agent for 850. I took it on at offers in excess of 8 because I felt the 850 was price to appease as opposed to price to sell. Side note on that, people need to remember that your price is there to entice interest, nothing else. There's no relevance. Your eventual sale price has no relevance to what you're going to sell at, because if that was the case, houses would never sell under asking price, and some houses would never sell over asking price. Your price is just there to entice. So anyway, she rang me up and said, I've seen the house come to market with you. I love it. I was like, okay, cool. Have you viewed it? She's like, no, not viewed it. But I'm going on holiday in 2 weeks' time. When I get back, if you're still available, I'm gonna view it, and I'm gonna offer you 820, 20 grand over asking price. And I'm like, okay, amazing. Have a nice holiday. Switch when you get back. So she got back, and I was like, what's happened here? She was like, I've had my eye on that house for the last 5 months, but I'm in the process of selling my company. I told myself I'm not going to view it until the money from my company sale is in my bank account. The company sale has been taking way longer than expected. And so I said to myself, when I get back off holiday, if it's still available, I'm buying it. And she did exactly that. Fully cash, no mortgage. Had her eye on it while it was on the market for 850. And it was a really good outcome for the seller and the buyer. So it might just be their situations at the time.
What was it that prompted her to view it then? Because when it was at 850, she didn't view it, but it went down to
Well, she
800
would have
and...
viewed it at 850 if
Mhm,
she said she wouldn't have paid that because she did feel that
mhm.
was too high, but she would have viewed it if her situation, if she had sold her company and the property was still on the
You'd have
market,
been in there.
she would have still viewed it. So that what I'm trying to get across is yes, it's price sometimes, other times it's just their current situation.
Mhm.
I've got a
Yeah.
lady waiting to view in 4 weeks' time. She's viewing an equestrian house that I'm selling for 1.5 million. You're like, oh, 4 weeks' time? Well, she's currently out in Spain eventing with her horses, so she just can't view for 4 weeks' time. So it's like, there's always these. I've had calls off, like I said, the house gets withdrawn from market, then they call because they were watching it, thinking, hoping it get reduced, and it
Mhm.
never did. It got withdrawn. I get a call. I'm like, yeah, they're just not going to sell it now. Oh, but that's perfect for me. I'm like, all right, if you want to view it, maybe I can convince them to still sell it. Okay, yeah, I'll view it. But they never wanted to view it while it was on the market. Boom. That was awesome. That was the first The Move vodcast, which is a video podcast. Great work, Chris. We'll polish it
Thank you,
up and
pal.
we'll get it out there and we'll do it again next week, Friday next week. So 10 days time, we'll come armed with your most common questions, solutions to the most common problems that we see day in, day out. I think what we have in here to help people just through sheer experience of day-to-day life, the
Mhm.
average person moves what, 2 or 3 times in their life?
Yeah.
We move hundreds and hundreds of people every year. So every possible situation has come up and been dealt with successfully. I love doing these. It gets me fired up. So thanks for your time.
I suppose as a lasting thing for me is what I would want to know. I know obviously we've gone to, or you've gone to the internet of the typical questions. Like, I'm in Sittingbourne, you're in Reigate. You are Reigate, aren't you? Of course you
Yeah, nice.
are. um, um, what are buyers and sellers in Sittingbourne? What do you need to know? I
Mm.
think this is the key thing that I would like to know is that in my certain area, what's the questions that you would like us to answer? So that's the key thing I'd want.
So drop them questions in the comments wherever you're watching this. Use the hashtag Ask Chris. I like that. Ask Chris. What should I be
Ask
doing in this
Chris.
situation? And we'll see you guys on the next one.